Siamo nel Golfo di Napoli.
We're in the Gulf of Naples. In this region, Campania, the passion for boating has generated numerous construction sites. Salpa is a historic boat manufacturer and has been building dinghies for 3 years. This model is the Soleil 33. This boat must be observed in all its characteristics: materials and construction methods, design of the hull and deck, the static and dynamic balance, comfort and safety. Because the shipyard has the reputation of being attentive and punctilious in every phase and in every aspect of the construction. Everything is done within the shipyard. This allows you to easily customize it by changing the colors of the hull, deck, tubular and cushions. You can also install a T-top or, as in this case, a roll bar bow. It is 10 meters and 25 centimeters long, and here no registration is required. And it is 3 meters and 40 centimeters wide. The tubulars are very large. The diameter of 74 centimeters at the stern is reduced to 60 centimeters in the bow. There are 2 sunbathing areas, one at the bow and the other at the stern. The mats reach saddles of the tubulars that rise on the deck, this also to give more strength. In the vertex there is a chain well and slightly before it a deep hold. The rafts are raised with the hangers hooked to the eye bolts so as not to choke the tubulars. By removing a cushion, you discover the cabin's ground. The steering position takes into account the maximum number of engines allowed on this boat, 2 400 horsepower engines, which is why the style of the armchairs are racing and enveloping. You have a platform to point your feet and the throttle on a protruding console, so that in case of need, you don't have to stretch out to pull it back. They have shaped the kitchen so to have a right passage next to the sofa, and they installed the handles on the structure and not mistakenly on the lid, as sometimes happens. The flooring between the sofas rises and becomes a sun deck or a table. Sitting in the cockpit is comfortable and you can hold on while navigating. The external side decks are useful for embarking and are separated from the deck, so when the tubulars are deflated for transport, they fold up and do not clutter up. You can easily reach the swimming platform thanks to a step, and the platforms on the sides of the engines make the bathing area wider and more comfortable. Despite all this space intended for open-air living, they have found a way to make us feel at ease even below deck. About the interior, the dinette quickly becomes a double berth. Next to the steps, there are bleached oak storage units with tops that serve as carry objects. In front, the bathroom with a beautiful refined core.
Saranno 2 fuoribordo Yamaha da 300.
2 Yamaha 300 horsepower outboards will be pushing this Salpa Soleil 33 during our test drive.
È una magnifica, fresca.
It is a cool and gorgeous day in the Gulf of Naples.
La brezza
There is a light breeze while the sea is practically calm.
Mi volto a controllare la scia perché
I turn around to check the wake because I can't understand where it enters planing. The fact is that from 10 knots on, it's already in navigation trim. And it absolutely does not lift the bow. I have a clear visual at any speed, now at 14 knots, just as before at 10.
hanno disegnato una carena con un asse di chiglia molto lungo.
They designed a hull with a very long keel axis, and to be able to find this geometry, they created an almost vertical forehand and a wheel with a very short radius.
I comandi sono un po' ruvidi, avrei preferito quelli elettronici.
The controls are a bit rough. I would have preferred the electronic ones. The wheelhouse involves a muscle energy, perhaps higher than what I would have liked.
Ma come naviga questo gommone?
But how does this dinghy sail? We're at 2,900 RPM. The speed is 20 knots, and we are consuming about 50 litres an hour.
Il parabrezza è molto distante dal viso.
The windshield is set very far away from the face. However, it manages to shield well. The noise is far away, partly because the engines are distant, a little because the stern of this boat seems to push the noise towards the outside, and therefore you feel at ease in the cockpit, also from an acoustic point of view.
Spingo sulle manette, la velocità cresce, l'assetto rimane sempre costante.
I'm pushing up the throttles, the speed grows, the trimming always remains constant. But now at 26 knots I raise the trim because I want to start feeling the step as it's working.
Ho portato il trim al 40%.
I brought the trim to 40% and now it actually pulls the water much farther aft.
E infatti il vantaggio si
In fact, we can see the advantage. We're at 30 knots and consumption is exactly as before, 0.3 miles with a litre.
La carena è indubbiamente profonda. Si ha quindi un angolo di sbandamento più.
The hull is undoubtedly deep, so there is quite a high skid angle, although you can also steer with a very precise trajectory.
Ancora gas?
More gas, more trimming.
Trim al 60%, regime 4.400 giri minuto, velocità.
Trim is at 60%, speed 4,400 RPM, speed 40 knots, consumption always 0.3 miles with a litre. And it's as gentle as, I can't find a term of comparison.
È straordinario sentire.
It is extraordinary to feel how this hull sails on these waves. Oh yes, because here we came across some waves, whom are moved by the wind that blows from the coast, and we're in the open sea. We are far away, so here the wave is already higher.
knots.
45 knots. We're cruising at 45 knots. And now, after all this preparation, down with the throttle and up with the trim.
Trim al 100%, lo scafo naviga solo sulle sezioni poppiere. Mi concentro.
Trimming at 100%. The hull sails only on the stern sections. I'm concentrating on the waves in front of me because I'm going really fast. I see them up and coming with an impressive speed, and in fact we're at 54 knots.
Ma ascoltate.
Listen to the sound of the waves. Do you see the wake as it runs away, as it flees off the stern?
Questo vi fa capire che stiamo tagliando l'acqua e in maniera morbida.
This lets you know that we are cutting through the water in a gentle way. Outstanding. Wonderful.
Meraviglioso. Scegliete pure questo gommone per il suo stile, per la sua.
You can choose this dinghy for its style, for its quality of construction, because you like it, or because it has a nice cabin. I would choose it for its navigational skills.